The best shooter I've ever run in 5 years in the NBA draft is in this draft. A new numbers darling or two. But why they all gotta be so small? It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. On today's Locked on Jazz, we will run through the numbers breakdown system I have for the NBA draft. Let me clarify, I've never seen any of these people. I have no idea what they look like. Half of them I don't know how to pronounce their names. I've never seen them. I've simply run numbers on them, the same numbers that we've now run for 5 straight seasons. I'll explain the system, share the wins and losses from years past, and then share with you through, I've done the top 33 players in this NBA draft for you. I have the best shooter I've ever seen. 2 incredible shooters, and we'll compare them to how other shooters in the past have been. One kid who got to be the number 1 pick, maybe. 2 numbers darlings, but why they all got to be so small? I tell you, it's a killer. We'll look at all that coming up. Is this draft really that bad? My quick answer to that is no, but it has flaws. Nothing quite lines up right, which is why everyone's saying that about this draft. As I mentioned, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's a daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. 5 stars, thumbs up, like buttons, super appreciative. Hit that like button if you hear a player you'd like the Utah Jazz to draft today on the program. If you're on YouTube, if you're on audio, thank you very much. Make sure you click it over. Thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. And to the everydayers out there, thank you so much. You make everything possible on the show. All right, let's get right to it. By the way, quick note, I'm doing this thing called vacation and then have a company retreat. So Leaf Tulane starts tomorrow and goes for 2 weeks. That is good for you because his other show is NBA Big Board and Locked on College Basketball, and that's really what you want this time of year. So he will carry you through this while I head out on a quick vacation. All right, here's the system. We talked about it quickly last night or yesterday, but for those of you who aren't everydayers, I want to quickly give it to you. I look at 3 different metrics that, to me, tell you whether you're an athlete. That's transition percentile, isolation ability to score, and rim shots, and whether you get to the rim and whether you finish. Then we look at playmaking, which is pick and roll. Then we look at shooting, spot up percentile, catch and shoot percentile, unguarded, which, as I said yesterday, not sure it's a great indicator. And then whether you can create, and that's dribble off the bounce, what your percentile is on dribble off the bounce. Okay, first thing I'll tell you is just on 2024, there's plenty of green. In other words, I highlight anyone in green who's good. There's plenty of green. There's a lot of red, but there's plenty of green. Here's the guys who the numbers have liked in the years past, okay? And so you can decide, and then there's the guys the numbers didn't like. So last year, the numbers really liked Brandon Miller. He peaked out on a bunch of different things. I'm doing this a little bit quickly on this. The elite athlete in last year's draft was Amon Thompson, followed by Asura Thompson. Okay, that turned out to be true, and they couldn't shoot. That's exactly what the number said. Grady Dick was a win last year. Jordan Hawkins, Taylor Hendricks, Bryce Sensabaugh, Julian Strother. Those were the guys that I had in green. The guys I had in red last year were Nick Smith, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Julian Phillips. I was low on Anthony Black as well. We'll see on that one. Might turn out, might not. 2022. Jabari Smith was in green. Let's see who else. Elite athleticism, the lead athletes in that draft that peaked out on the athleticism were Chet Holmgren, Keegan Murray, Malachi Branham, Tari Eason, and Jalen Duren. Overall, Jabari, guys who could really shoot it, guys I really like, Jabari Smith, Keegan Murray, AJ Griffin was a darling, Tari Eason, Jalen Duren, Jalen Williams, and Walker Kessler. Guys we didn't like were Ty Washington, Jonathan Davis, and Johnny Davis, and Max Christie. Okay, like we haven't had a bad run here. Guys we liked in 2021 with the numbers were Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Davion Mitchell, Corey Kispert, Ayuda Sumo, Trey Mead for the third. We love Chris Durant today, but he was old. Guys we didn't like were James Bouknight, Moses Moody, Keon Johnson, Zaire Williams, Sharif Cooper was a later pick in that group. 2020, guys we liked, Anthony Edwards, though his shooting was questionable, but his athleticism numbers were crazy. Tyrese Halliburton was off the charts. Devin Vassell, Kyra Lewis Jr. we loved. Sadiq Bey, Malachi Flynn. Big miss there. Did not love Tyrese Maxey. Didn't read him because he was 84th percentile in transition and 86th percentile in pick and roll ball handling, but was worried he couldn't shoot. Okay, just his catch and shoot percentile was in the 28th percentile, but his off the bounce was 53. Didn't love him, did not like him, but people that's one it's worth talking about. Didn't like Isaac Okoro, didn't like Patrick Williams, didn't like Cole Anthony, didn't like Tyler Bey. For a draft that goes, we talked about draft numbers earlier, 50-50. This turns out liked Zion Williamson, liked John Morant, liked Brandon Clark, liked Cameron Johnson, liked Tyler Hero. Didn't like Kobe White, didn't like Jared Culver, didn't like Cam Reddish. Not sure why we didn't like Kobe White. That's a mistake. Kobe White was in the 27th percentile in jumpers off the dribble, but he was in 95th percentile in spot up and 93rd in catch and shoot, and got to the rim a decent amount. It was okay. I don't know why Kobe White's a red. That shouldn't be, but it's there. Okay. So who do we got this year? There's a lot of athleticism this year. That would be the first thing I would tell you. There are a lot of guys whose athletic numbers are really good. Starting at the top with Alex Sarr, his athletic numbers are pretty good. Donovan Clingan, obviously, is huge. Cody Williams out of Colorado probably comes out as the best athlete in this draft. Jared McCain comes out well. Devin Carter comes out well, little guards. And then Khalil Ware out of Indiana was a 7-footer. Transition percentage was good, and his rim finishing was good. No isolation numbers. And Keyshawn George out of Miami looks pretty good. He's 6'9.5", 84th percentile in transition, 96th percentile. So a lot of athletes in this draft. Nobody, though, really is very good at isolation, which is this is what happens with every piece of analysis of this draft. Is that I find these guys who are like athletes, and then you're looking for the next step, which can he really do it? Cody Williams out of Colorado is the best athlete in this draft. At least according to the numbers, at least in my book. He's in the 84th percentile in transition, 86th percentile in isolation, but just 15 attempts. And then at the rim, he's at the 96th percentile, which is pretty good for a guy who's 6'7.5". That jumps out at you. But Nikola Topic, who's a 6'7", is in the 81st percentile at the rim. And so there are some other guys and then obviously Zach Edey and Klinger are great at the rim. The big guys are all good at the rim. So of non-big guys at the rim, that's the elite number right there is Cody Williams, athletically 6'7", 190 pounds, freshman wing out of Colorado. Interesting. Finishing him up, because I do think he's really interesting, 49th percentile on pick and roll ball handling, which is not great, but not terrible, 53 attempts. 86th percentile in spot up percentage. 95th percentile in catch and shoot percentage. Almost perfect in off the bounce. In unguarded. And not very good on off the bounce. Really didn't have it in his game at all. 5 of 16. So you've got a good rim finishing wing who can shoot it. I'm going to put a yes on Cody Williams. The not being able to play off the bounce with the dribble, probably, again, what leads people on this draft to always feel like there's something a little lacking. Reed Sheppard might be the best numbers player I've ever had. He's in the 70th percentile athletically on transition and 61% at rim. He's in the 93rd percentile in pick and roll ball handling. He's in the 100th percentile in spot up shooting. He's in the 99th percentile in catch and shoot. He's in the 98th percentile in catch and shoot unguarded. And he's the 99th percentile jumper off the dribble. Never, ever, ever happened before. Have never had somebody 90% in pick and roll, 90% across the board in shooting. Freshman, Kentucky, but old, 20 for a freshman. Tiny, 6'2", 187. And there it is again, the essence of this draft. It looks so good. It is so fabulous. But Cody Williams, great rim finisher, super shooter, great body, can't play off a bounce. Reed Sheppard, maxing out on the numbers. Really hard to believe he's not the number one pick. 6'2". 6'2". Might be a non-starter before you actually do anything else with him. He's 6'2". Another brilliant shooter, and two other guys have been numbered darlings. And they're both small. It's next as we continue on. We're just getting started on Locked On Jazz. Maybe I'll hit the right one here at some point. Thank you much for tuning in and dealing with my shenanigans. Have you played Monopoly Go? So fun. You've got to jump aboard. It's the classic, but it's modernized and it's fun and it feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot Penchico. There's always a new timed event to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win and rent. You can get the friends together. You can play on your own. You can get a group. It's super, super fun. It's Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, get in the game, go download it now, free on Google Play or the Apple Play Store. Game on. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis, unique stickers. It's all a great deal of fun. It's time to get out there and play Monopoly Go. Team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build on each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. There's just more to do than you can imagine and more fun to be had with Monopoly Go. They're all so small. It's a sad, sad thing about this draft. There's always something wrong. By the way, are you kind of tired of all the yelling and screaming and all this and that of ESPN and Fox and the hype? Everything's just about, nothing's about the game and that's all about the sensationalism and all the rest of it, right? Well, that's where Locked On Sports Today comes in. Your first ever YouTube 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, with all the local experts of Locked On. It's available for you on YouTube at Locked On Sports Today as a 24/7 stream, or available for you on Amazon Fire TV. Just go to your Amazon Fire TV, go to the Fire TV channels, and when you can scan down and you get those cute little circles that are down at the bottom that show you all the live TV shows that exist, all the different channels, you scan over to Locked On Sports Today, the green circle, and you click it and you get Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 streaming channel with all the biggest news stories from the local experts of Locked On. All right, back to it. There is another shooter in this draft that's equally remarkable, and interestingly enough, he plays for the same team, Kentucky. It's Rob Dillingham. He's 19 and a half. He's only 6'1". He is not an athlete. He peaks out in our concerning level for an athlete. Now, he's in the 25th percentile in transition percentile and the 34th percentile in the rim. He and Jacoby Walter and Bub Carrington all are very concerning athletically. Who have been others that have been concerning athletically on ours? Interestingly enough, Scoot Henderson, Keontae George, Nick Smith Jr. By the way, I think I said that. Nick Smith Jr. was a not like. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Dariq Whitehead, who was the best shooter in last year's draft, were all concerning. Max Christie was a concern athletically. Ty Washington was an athletic concern. There's a difference between being an athlete and being a functional athlete, which is what I think this shows. Keon Johnson was an athletic concern. Josh Primo was an athletic concern. Sharif Cooper was an athletic concern, at least on our numbers. So was Patrick Williams, 6'8", 225, great athlete. Maybe not. Cole Anthony. Interesting miss here. Jaden McDaniels was a little bit of an athletic concern. And in 2019, Romeo Langford. Okay, athletic concerns are concerns, right? Like guys who got redded for athleticism, that's not a very good track record. I got to tell you, remember when we look at these drafts, now maybe it's going to be you take every single one of these guys down to 0 at some point, and you have nobody left to draft. But when we do this, remember that in the draft, after the 11th pick of the draft, you got a 50-50 chance of getting somebody who actually ever plays for you. We did that last week, that's your opportunity is a 50-50 chance to actually get somebody who actually plays for you. So if that's the case and we can suddenly eliminate a bunch of guys because of these numbers and you actually believe it, that's pretty interesting. Rob Dillingham is hard because he does that. And that's a problem. And Jacoby Walker is a problem. And Bob Carrington's a problem. But here's the other thing about Rob Dillingham. He's in the 89th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler. He's in the 97th percentile on spot up. He's in the 98th percentile on catch and shoot. And he's in the 82nd percentile on jumper off the dribble. So we've got Reed Sheppard, who's 90s across the board. And we got Dillingham, who's 80s and 90s across the board. That's not that common. By the way, my numbers darling of this draft is Duke freshman, 6'3", 200-pound Jared McCain. 87th percentile in transition, 69th percentile in isolation in limited attempts, 70 percentile in the rim. That's good if you're 6'3". 93rd percentile pick and roll ball handler, 90 percentile catch and shoot, 78 percentile in spot up, which means otherwise he's virtually perfect, and off the bounce in 103 attempts, 81 percentile. I looked last night. If you're over 80 percentile in over 100 attempts, I thought I might have something. It was not there. There's no trend on that. It felt like it should be. It's not there. Dillingham and McCain are both that. My second numbers darling is older, but short again, 6'3". Providence's Devin Carter. 79th percentile in transition, 82nd percentile in rim with on 176 attempts at 6'3". He also, by the way, averages 8.7 rebounds a game. He had 151 pick and roll attempts, which is the most of any one of the higher numbers in the draft. Isaiah Collier had more as a freshman, and Bob Carrington had more. Spot up percentile, 70th percentile. Catch and shoot, 86th percentile. And off the bounce, 73rd percentile on 121 shots. I like that. So right now, my greens, the guys I've greened in this draft, 5 guys so far that I've looked at and said, okay, I like, are Reed Sheppard, but he's 6'2". Rob Dillingham, but he's 6'1". Jared McCain, but he's 6'3". And Devin Carter, but he's 6'3". And frankly, I'm not sure I would draft anyone in the first round of an NBA draft that's smaller than 6'4" anymore. Which leaves me with Cody Williams, 6'7", 19-year-old out of Colorado. Crazy. This is why this draft is being talked about the way it is. It's not that there aren't good players. It's that they don't vibe together. Like those 5 guys, those are incredible numbers I just gave you. But they don't quite work. Now, let's go back to Reed Sheppard for a second and his shooting. Who are players? So Reed Sheppard is in the 90th percentile in pick and roll, plus 100th percentile spot up, 99th percent in catch and shoot, 99th percent off the dribble. Is there anyone that has been close to this? So in last year's draft, there were a few guys that shot this well. Brandon Miller was 89, 82, but 68. I mean, nobody's ever what Reed Sheppard is. I'm telling you, there's not a 199.99 out there. There are 5 guys who've been 90s across the board in the 5 years we've done this. Last year's draft, here are the guys, just to give you an idea, who are somewhat elite level in that combination, but none of them had the pick and roll numbers. Brandon Miller was in the 26th percentile in pick and roll. I'm trying to see who that is. Cam Whitmore was 86, 84, 85, but then 49. Jordan Hawkins. And Cam Whitmore wasn't good in the pick and roll. Jordan Hawkins was not good in the pick and roll. But he was 97, 88, but just 56 off the bounce. Dariq Whitehead, who was the best shooter in last year's draft, coming off major injury, hadn't played, Was not great in the pick and roll. 85, 94, and then 71 off the bounce. I mean, just 90, 90, 90 across the board is unheard of. Trey Alexander in last year's draft, 92, 90, then 74. Julian Strawther was probably the best combination. He was one of the guys we really liked. He was 77 percentile in pick and roll. And then he was 92 or 91, 93, 71. And another one we loved in last year's draft, I should have said in the green, was Marcus Sasser. Marcus Sasser, who was too small, so he went late, but then had a very good year for Detroit, was as close to Reed Sheppard as I've seen. 89%, but now a second-round pick, right? 6'2", 5-year guard out of Houston. 89 percentile in the pick and roll, then 97 in spot and shoot, 95 in catch and shoot, and 63% off the bounce. So not quite there. Reed Sheppard and Rob Dillingham's numbers are somewhat unprecedented, particularly when you add Reed Sheppard's athleticism numbers being good. Dillingham's are bad, and we just showed you that all those guys that were bad athletes, that's pretty concerning. But Reed Sheppard's combination across the board, it's hard to believe he's not the number one pick, actually. But he's 6'2". All right, there are 5 guys who have gone 90, 90, 90 across the board in shooting. Not with pick and roll, but just in shooting. So ability to create your own shot and your shooting. 5 of them. What do they make you think of how good Reed Sheppard and Rob Dillingham, who's a poor athlete, might be in this draft? Plus 5 other names of guys that have actually been really, really good shooters like these guys have. And we'll dig a little bit more into my 2 numbers darlings, Jared McCain and Devin Carter, both 6'3". Why is everybody got to be so small? It is Locked On Jazz. We'll give that for you next as we continue. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you in part by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing app of Locked On. Gotta love Game Time. I always love the story Matt Moore of the of the Nuggets talks about. He and his wife are huge Avalanche fans. We may have to learn this now in Utah. And so they, I guess, live close enough to the Ball Arena that they'll just get on the app of Game Time every night. They kind of are sitting there having dinner, watching the app, and if the ticket price gets down to the number they're willing to go to, then they'll buy them on the spot at the moment. They use a bunch of the Game Time features like zone deals where you can save even more. You just choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. They love the all-in pricing, the toggle feature that shows you totally upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. They also has the seat view, lowest price guaranteed. Other Locked On hosts have talked about how great it is to use Game Time because of the fact that they'll credit you 110% back on the difference, so you don't have to be working between multiple apps. Game Time will take care of you, the lowest price guaranteed, and Game Time's ticket coverage is automatically covered so that you're has the most flexible customer ticket coverage policy in the ticketing industry. So right now, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute deals, lowest price guaranteed. Today's show is also brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs in Utah for over 80 years, giving you the best possible service they can give. The lineup of Hyundai cars, absolutely amazing. I'm driving the Tucson right now. It's just great. My wife drove it yesterday, really liked it, other than the fact that she lost it in the parking lot because she forgot she drove that car and couldn't find it, which was kind of funny. It has absolutely been great for the dollar figure, too. It's just amazing. I still have the sticker on it, and I look at it every time like, wow, how can you not get this car? So great. The Santa Fe and the new Santa Cruz, great lineup of SUVs with the Ioniq 5 and 6 are the electric cars have taken the market by storm and won every award imaginable. It is Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. Feel free to email me first. I'll give you the VIP treatment over at Murdoch Hyundai for being a Locked On Jazz listener. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Can't thank you enough. Everydayers, I'm going to miss you. I will miss you. I need to take some time. Well, I just get to. I don't need to. I feel great. I could start the season tomorrow, but I get to take the time. So I'm going to go do that. So make sure you enjoy it. The Locked On has launched the first ever 24/7 national stream channel. Make sure you check it out. Do it for me. While I'm gone, please check out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7, covering the top stories. It's just on YouTube for you. You can just grab it and have it playing in the background. You can grab it on Amazon Fire TV if you're a Fire TV viewer. If you're a crazy news person, there's a really cool app called News On. We're also on that. All right. Here are the 5 guys that have a 90-90 across the board shooting in the 5 years we've done this. AJ Griffin. He's drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. He had come off a bunch of injuries. He was actually playing, and then he did not play last year off against with Quinn Snyder's the head coach. I don't know the story of why his minutes diminished so much, but he really kind of fell off the map. His first year as a rookie, he played 72 games. He shot 47% and 39% from 3. And then last year, he only played 8 minutes a night in 20 games and was completely out of the Hawks rotation. Frankly, if I was the Jazz, I would call Atlanta and see what his price is. Because if he's not playing and he's 6'6", 220 with the numbers he had coming out of the draft, I'd take a kick at it. Corey Kispert was 90% across the board. Corey Kispert, in his 3rd year out of Gonzaga last year, broke through. He ended up shooting 49% from the floor, 38% from 3, scoring 13 points a game. He had a great close to the season. The former 15th pick of the draft, his career, 48% from the field and 39% from 3. Okay? Shoot. Chris Duarte. This was a really hard one for our numbers. And there's a few guys this year where you have to kind of be as careful. The thing on Chris Duarte is because of a unique thing where he grew up in the Dominican Republic, and then he came to New York, and then he took another year, and then this, and then he transferred, and then he did all these things. He was 25 years old when he came into the NBA. And he was 24 years old in his final year at Oregon. And his numbers were awesome. And his career has not been that awesome. Though, it has not been. He played for 2 years for Indiana, and last year he was in Sacramento. He's playing 12 minutes a night. He has not really panned out, I would say. He shot 38% from the floor and 35% from 3. He was the 13th pick of the draft, and he was super old, and it was the age thing probably should have overrode any good numbers, because just when you're 23 years old beating up on 18-year-olds, it does not necessarily make you strip. He was not quite 90, but it is worth mentioning here also because it just makes everyone kind of cringe. But somebody who was awfully close to these numbers was Desmond Bane. 85th percentile pick and roll ball handler, 90th percentile spot up, 76th percentile on his overall catch and shoot, and 95 percentile in his jumper off the bounce. So he is about as close. In fact, I don't think you can find many other people that are 85, 90, 90 to the 3rd category. I have one that didn't pan out for you in a second who I think did that. But if you take 85 percentile pick and roll ball handler plus 90% spot up shooter and plus 90% dribble off the bounce, I think your list is really, really, really small. Like, I think it's Desmond Bane and I think it's Reed Sheppard. The catch and shoot in the middle wasn't as good. The only other one, so we all love Desmond Bane, so that one jumps out at us. The only other one that might have been equally as good, and I don't think you'd want to use the first pick of an NBA draft on him, but he did turn out to be a pretty darn good player, is Peyton Pritchard, a Danny Ainge draft pick. Pritchard was 89 percentile pick and roll, so he would hit this 85, 93 percentile spot up, 90% catch and shoot, and 71 percentile jumper off the dribble. So he does not do the 85, 90, 90 of 85 percentile as a pick and roll ball handler, 90 percentile as a spot up, 90 percentile as a jumper off the dribble. That's a Desmond Bane only that I believe. I did not totally search that one all the way out, but I'm pretty certain that that's a Desmond Bane only. Desmond Bane was just so good at everything. He just peaked out. His athleticism was like at the rim was average. Not bad, just average. Reed Sheppard does that Desmond Bane thing. Jared McCain, 6'3", 200-pound, 8. He is 93 percentile pick and roll, 78% on spot up, so he does not do 90, 90, 90. and 81 percentile jumper off the bounce. Pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Devin Carter, 6'3", 22-year-old out of Providence. Get a little nervous. 79 percentile on transition. 89 percentile on pick and roll ball handler. 86 percentile catch and shoot. 70 percentile on spot up is all. And off the bounce, 73 percentile. Those are kind of my numbers, guys, in this draft. The big guys are going to be a lot of talk on how you deal with this draft. And Donovan Clingan, Zach Eiite, Khalil Ware is 7 feet 242. There's another big guy in here somewhere. Those are the three that kind of, no, those are the three that are kind of Flipowski and at Duke. Of those, the best rim finisher, Eite's at 97%, Ware's at 95%. These guys are huge. They should be. Klingen's at 90%. Flipkowski is 7 foot 230. He's at 61%. Pick and roll man, like in other words, you're the rolling man. Donovan Klingen's in the 86th percentile. Eite's in the 97th percentile. Khalil Ware's in the 68th percentile. Oh, Deron Holmes is the other big, who's 6'10", 221. That's just a little small to be a big. He's in the 69th percentile. However, Holmes can shoot a tiny bit. Where on 28 spot ups was in the 87th percentile and made a few shots. Zach Eiite can't shoot a lick. He took 2 shots outside. And Clingan didn't. It took 5. Really limited. Really, really limited. Khalil Ware is a little less limited, but that's not a lot. He didn't take a single shot off the bounce. Obviously at that size. And Deron Holmes took 21 of them, but he only made 6. So those guys are super limited, which backs up the whole theme of everything I've told you on this draft. From the numbers, I haven't watched a single player. I'll go watch some of them now. It's like, yes, but on almost every single one of them. Finally thought, Cody Williams. 6'7", 190 pounds, 19 years old, out of Colorado. 84th percentile in transition. 96th percentile finishing in the rim. 49th percentile pick and roll. Okay, fine. On 53, though. That's 86th percentile spot up. 95th percentile catch and shoot. 99th percentile unguarded catch and shoot. Only 30% off the bounce. Didn't really do it. Mentioned it before. But I like it. But. I leave you with Reed Sheppard, but his butt is his size. Rob Dillingham, but his butt is his athleticism. His butt, the word. Cody Williams, his butt is the limit of whether he can play off the bounce. Jared McCain, not a lot of butts. An old freshman, 20 years old, by the way, worth noting, like a year older than Dillingham and a year, Sheppard's old too. And Devin Carter, who's 22, so that would be his concern. But not a huge McCain might be my least concerning of any player. Leaf Tulane will be with you for the next 2 weeks, and he is a draft expert, so that is good for you. He actually watches the players instead of numbers, but that hopefully gives you a little background and makes you decide whether to work and then listen to Leaf and see what he has to say. This has been Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Thanks so much for tuning in. Now head over to Locked On Sports Today on Amazon or YouTube, and if you're on audio, please do the same. Have a great day. See you guys in a little bit.